Hey everyone, I'm Case Aiken. Now, we're still waiting for Invincible Season 2 to come back from its mid-season hiatus, so let's talk about a character introduced this season, Zandale Randolph, better known as Bulletproof, from Robert Kirkman's Invincible. Now, considering that the character has only appeared a handful of times in the show so far, and really has only been a background character beyond some good quips, let's acknowledge that basically any conversation about this character is going to be a spoiler, and I'm going to try to not spoil the very end of the series, but I will have to talk about some of the things that happen over the course of pretty deep into it. Cool? So I'm going to put up another spoiler tag right here. Good? Good. Cool. All right. The character began as a callback to early development material for the book, having both the name and overall costume that was originally intended for the title character. For those of you who've only read the singles or omnibuses, Kirkman has always been very open about his creative process in the trade paperbacks, and included sketches and explained where concepts came from all over the place, including often explaining things that were meant as inside jokes so the audience could join in. This included developmental material that showed that Mark was originally supposed to be called Bulletproof and wore a costume with multiple color configurations that was identical to what Zandale would ultimately wear. In the comics, they teased this because they were able to show off multiple costumes that Mark tried on before they settled on the right one, and that included the costume that was the Bulletproof design. Eventually, the unused name and design was folded into a separate character, however, Bulletproof, who joined the resident super team of the Guardians of the Globe as another heavy hitter. He had roughly equivalent powers to Invincible, though a bit weaker, like Immortal or Captain Cosmic, and probably a step down from that, frankly, but still way above most other heroes. The damn series had a lot of Supermen. Now, if I remember correctly, his powers worked by storing kinetic energy, making him particularly durable to physical attacks, but more vulnerable to energy. The discs on his suit, which were originally conceived to store solar energy if Invincible had gone the way of being powered by the sun, just like Superman, were instead modified to store that kinetic energy for him. Zandale was a background character for much of the early series, but eventually he got fleshed out to have a seriously fucked up family relationship, including an evil dead twin that he now impersonated, kind of like Ultiman, and an even worse relationship with his parents. He was a morally gray character, struggling to do what was right, but often stumbling. Not that his life made it easy for him. Later, while Mark Grayson was sidelined and frankly caught up in bigger stuff, Bulletproof was recruited by Adam Eve to fill the role of Invincible, including wearing the classic costume. The two even worked together sometimes. Now, despite his many flaws, Mark was rarely that concerned about people stealing glory, so he was fine with this dynamic. Even later in the series, when things got, shall we say, more contentious with Robot, Bulletproof sided with Robot and remained his close ally until the end of the series. And that doesn't go well for anyone involved. And that's all I'm gonna say here. Zandale was ultimately a character that was not given time to shine, and some of that comes from the writing itself. Hopefully, given the amount of changes they've made so far to the series, Invincible, the TV show, will do the character a bit more justice. But even if they do it exactly as it was in the comics, Zandale was a character who tried his best in a very crowded world. But the series was often about figuring out what was really the right thing to do and balancing that with personal needs and a complicated reality. And frankly, no one was perfect. He fit the role of a flying brick and was a great, if smaller, part of the story until things compiled against him and he broke. Still, he does a very good job filling in for a Superman-type character, which he did so professionally for a chunk of time. Speaking of people who are professional superheroes, next time we're going to talk about a pair of Supermen from the Invincible world when we talk about the Meteor Twins. But until then, stay super, man. Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for watching this video and for bearing with me as we are still kind of getting back on a more regular schedule. This is a character who I have been excited to talk about on here, but also conscientious of the fact that he's not really handled that well in the later part of the series, and is probably one of the bigger sore spots in what I think is overall one of my favorite comics of all time. But that's cool, and I hope my desire not to spoil too much of the rest of the series, considering that the show is running currently and seems to be following the big story beats in all the major ways, doesn't damper the use of this video. I think I cover most of the major things about the character. Bulletproof is ultimately kind of a side character in this whole thing, even though he sometimes gets to show up as the cover image for a lot of the issues. But that said, things are going well. I hope everything is going well for all of you in this new year. And excited that I'm back at a slightly more regular pace than I had been. Regardless, I hope you all just have a really great week.